from Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. This is the Portman Nature Preserve. It's located in Paw Paw on 49th Avenue, just minutes from Matawan and Kalamazoo. This preserve is about 189 acres with a variety of different habitats, including high-quality prairie fen, savanna, wetlands, and woodlands. We have over 2 miles of marked trails, as well as a boardwalk that lets you explore the Lime Lake area. This preserve is open and free to the public 365 days a year, so we hope that you'll come out and explore with us. Let's go take a hike.
Hi there, my name is Mitch Leto. I'm the Stewardship Director at the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. Happy to be here today at the Portman Nature Preserve, and happy to be here, frankly, any day. It's one of my favorite preserves that we own and manage, and just one of the best natural areas in Southwest Michigan. I am a little biased, but so as Miko mentioned, we have over 2 miles of trail system at the preserve, and we really tried hard to connect the user of the trail system with the different features of the preserve, different views, different experiences. And we're standing here now on a viewing platform at what we call Mud Lake. And this was built last year, designed and led by a couple of volunteers working with the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy staff, and now provides a really great space for school groups, families, just larger groups to gather. There are benches here, so it's a great place to just sit, take a thoughtful moment. We can hear the birds singing right here, and just have some contemplation time or watch the birds and just appreciate the lake. So the most obvious feature that you see here is the water. And in terms of conserving this preserve, the water and the water quality benefits are one of the most major contributions that the preserve has made in its natural state. And so the lake that you see in front of you actually has no inlet. A lot of our lakes have an inlet where water goes in and an outlet where water goes out. But this lake only has an outlet, and that's because its inlet comes from underneath. So it's fed by groundwater. So in this area, it's very sandy, gravelly soil. So as the rain falls, the water percolates down and hits the water table, or what we call groundwater. And just like surface water, it goes from high to low. And when it gets to a point that's low enough, it will discharge and come above ground again as surface water. And that's what you see here. So sometimes that looks like a wetland, it can be springs, streams, lakes. And so this is one of our spring-fed lakes on the preserve. And there's actually a chain of 3 lakes which the preserve leads you around throughout the trail system. This being the first of those 3 that we'll kind of explore. And that water coming out of the ground at a really stable, cool temperature is really important for the life that lives in the water. So just because they're underwater doesn't mean they don't need to breathe oxygen. Cold water holds more oxygen, and so downstream later, this series of waterways become Hayden Creek, and then the north branch of the Paw Paw River. And that's our best river and watershed in this area for water quality. And it's places like this that really help make that a possibility, keeping the land natural and the features that it provides. The other thing that you'll notice here, undoubtedly, are birds. Whether you know their name or not, it doesn't matter. It's still a great place to see birds. It's a nice open area, line of view. You can see all the way from one side of the lake to the other. In the fall, it's great to see the reflection of the trees on the water. But together with volunteers, we found that this preserve has about 150 species of birds that we found so far. And that's just in the 2-3 years that the preserve has been open to the public. If you are a birder, you can find Portman Nature Preserve on eBird. It's considered a hot spot, which means it's publicly accessible and it's a great place to find birds. And your list can be tallied there, and that's how we know how many species of birds everyone is seeing. And the reason that there's such a great variety of bird species here is there's a great variety of habitats and natural features. So you can see the open lake behind us, so you're going to have geese, sandhill cranes, even an occasional eagle. Out at a place like this, we have swallows flying over the open water, feeding on insects. You have different birds that are on the shoreline versus the forest. And so by having that variety of features, that's really nice as a trail user. It's also really great for bird diversity. And so it's good for humans and birds. So one of the things we really pride ourselves about at the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, and specifically on our nature preserves, is the idea of stewardship. And when we say stewardship in context of conservation, we mean taking care of the land. So that can mean everything from marking these trails and making sure there's not erosion on the trails, to maintaining our parking lot and public access, but it also means taking care of the ecosystem. And we manage for healthy ecosystems. And so if you think about that in the same way you maintain your own health, we try to make sure there's a minimum of invasive, non-native plants here that can really take over and change the system. So we're trying to manage for very diverse native systems that can still function, can do everything from carbon sequestration to nutrient cycling to filtering our water. And that sort of thing. And so you might be walking along the trails out here and seeing some of these stumps and wonder why someone would be cutting down plants, brush in a nature preserve. And the answer is that they're invasive plants. They're invasive brush species. So the main one here is something called autumn olive that was once introduced, is now widespread and spreads on its own. It really shades out all these understory wildflowers that you can see here have kind of popped up after removing them. And you might also see brush piles in the area, and that's also where we've accumulated the invasive brush. So that's really going to allow light to come in. It's going to allow more room for the native plants to spread. And native plants support more insects, which support the food web. So we're just going to see those wildlife populations and bird populations build after that. And the other thing is it makes a really nice view. This area used to be really choked by this autumn olive plant that's about, can get over your head, upwards of 10, 12 feet tall. Now, not the primary reason for doing it, but there's beautiful views through the woods here. And so you'll continue to see the preserve change again and again, and we kind of think about it like a good wine. It's only going to get better with time. So it was great when we preserved it, and we're hoping to make it even better. And the other important thing to note is that volunteers and the community have a really important role in that. So a lot of this work is driven by volunteers, people coming out in their spare time, donating their time and energy to making this place healthier after they get to know it as well. One of the things I love about hiking in natural areas is they're living, breathing ecosystems, so you never know what's going to be blooming, what's going to pop up, and what you might see one day when you're walking that you may not have seen before. And as we were walking along here, we just stumbled on this big colony of these funny looking critters sticking up here that look like some kind of cone or maybe mushroom. You'd be forgiven if you thought it was a mushroom or a pine cone. But it's actually a plant. So this plant is called bear corn, and they don't get much above 4 to 6 inches tall. And right now you're seeing the white seed pods forming. It's done flowering for the year. And the reason it looks so weird is that unlike this plant here that's nice and bright green, the bright green color comes from chlorophyll, which is how plants make their own food. They make their own sugars, and they feed themselves that way using sunlight. This plant actually gets its sugars from attaching its roots to the roots of trees like these oak trees we see behind us here. So it's actually kind of a parasite, or a hemiparasite, pseudoparasite. So it doesn't really harm the tree in this case, but it is just sort of a neat feature, part of the diversity of plants out here. And we also think it's a sign of good soil health too, because that network of connections really helps absorb rainwater, stabilize the soil, and is just sort of a neat feature of the plant life here. All right, well, we're here at the end of the leg of our hike. We've hiked all the way from Mud Lake to the third lake in the chain of 3. This is Lime Lake here. It's a nice quiet lake. There's not a lot of motor recreational boating out here, so it's a nice quiet place to enjoy wildlife and just kind of enjoy a nature experience. We're standing right now on a boardwalk and viewing platform built in 2017, just after we got the preserve, with staff and again led by volunteers. So this boardwalk out here essentially sits on top of the wetland and floats on top of the wetland more or less, and is almost 600 feet of boardwalk that allows you to experience this unique wetland that otherwise you have to kind of push through the brush and get your feet wet to experience. So the boardwalk itself represents kind of a balance that we try to strike here with conserving rare plants and animals in unique habitats, but also allowing the public and the community to interact with those features and really appreciate the preserve. And so you can see that in some of the areas the boardwalk is even skinnier than in others, and that's because we're in on the edge of Lime Lake here. We're in what's a rather unique and somewhat rare wetland type called a prairie fen wetland. This is one of the few places in Southwest Michigan where you can see one without getting your feet wet. So it's a really cool feature, and it's a unique wetland because it again has a lot of that groundwater that we talked about earlier coming up through the soil and into the wetland, and it goes through limestone, which is like a calcium and magnesium. It's a product in cement, so think of it as that white powdery stuff. And it creates a really unique set of conditions, a high pH on the chemistry scale. Not a lot of plants can grow there. So a lot of the plants that do grow here are pretty unique and specially adapted, and any given square foot or square meter of a prairie fen ecosystem has more plant diversity than almost any other habitat in Michigan. So it's a really great place to conserve botanical diversity, and the boardwalk is a really special place to view it while not damaging the resource in the first place. And so with that, we've kind of explored a good chunk of our trail system here, and we really encourage you to come out. As Miko said, it's open to the public every day, dawn to dusk, and it's a new experience every time. And if you want to get involved, if you come to really like it here and want to get involved and help, we're a membership-based organization. We're a nonprofit, so we don't get any type of tax revenue or anything like that. Everything that you see is based off of the generosity of the public. So becoming a member and donating is a really key way to do that. You can also get involved on the preserve if you're interested in a specific preserve or in doing habitat restoration. We have a number of volunteer events generally that people can come out and help maintain trails, cut back brush and do habitat restoration, pull garlic mustard, those sorts of things. And if nothing else, we hope you come visit and tell a friend or bring a friend if you do.